All right, welcome everyone to the first virtual TAP interest meeting of the 22-23 school year. Um, Thank you for coming in and being on time. We will start now. Of course, this meeting will be recorded. Please make sure that your cameras are off and please make sure to mute your microphone. There will be a Q&A session at the end of the presentation, but please utilize the chat box for questions and a member of the TAP intake team will answer your question. All right. So the TAP intake team is made up of a few stellar individuals. First, we have our Director of Professional Development, the overall TAP Director, Dr. Gloria Duncan. Um, I apologize. Dr. Duncan is now the Executive Director of Professional Development. So this happened recently, so we're always congratulating her for her achievement. We also have two professional learning coordinating supervisors, Dr. Avery Kenley and Mrs. Melissa Sloan Iddens. They are both on the Zoom and they will be answering questions in the chat box. We have two intake specialists, myself, Dr. Sean Antonetti, and Mr. Daniel Lee. And of course, Mr. Lee is on the Zoom call as well. So remember, utilize that chat box and ask those questions and they will get an answer back to you as soon as they can. Of course, if the question may not be able to be answered in the chat box, then at the end of the session, please, you can come off mute and you can ask that question. And finally, our TAP Administrative Assistant is Ms. Teresa Brown. I'm sure many of you have already emailed or contacted her. If not, she will be your point person for everything regarding your application for the TAP program. Let's go ahead and get started. So with Clayton County Public Schools, we are seeking individuals who are outstanding people. We want great people to come to our schools and to bring their positivity, their energy, and their willingness to impact student lives in the classroom. Now, because the TAP program, TAP stands for the Teacher Academy of Preparation and Pedagogy, it's a non-traditional program for educator preparation, which means that you do not have to have any previous education coursework or experience. The program will, in our program, we will teach you everything you need to know. All right. And please, just a reminder, make sure that your camera is off and that your microphone is off as well. All right, some things to consider as you think about whether or not the TAP program is for you. So the ideal TAP candidate is a person who is a graduate of an accredited college or university. So again, remember, please make sure to mute yourself. So you must have graduated with a bachelor's degree from an accredited college or university. From that degree, you should have a strong content knowledge in the area in which you wish to teach. It goes without saying that you must be highly committed and passionate about wanting to teach and to educate our children. And we want someone who has a dynamic personality that can come into the classroom and they can take charge of that classroom immediately. And of course, it goes without saying, you must be dedicated to helping our students succeed. Now, it may seem a little silly to put those things on the screen, but a love for teaching and a love for our students is 50% of the work of becoming a proficient new teacher. So we want those types of people in our program. So again, some things to consider with the TAP program. As I mentioned before, it is a non-traditional program. So a traditional program is based in a university. But our program still leads to clear and renewable certification, the same type of certification you would get if you went through a traditional teaching or educator preparation program in a college or university. It is on-the-job training. So that means you will be teaching in the classroom as a teacher of record during the day. And you will learn from your mentor, your administrator. You'll also learn from a person as myself on the county level who comes in and helps you to move towards being a proficient new teacher. And you're also taking classes at night, so it is really on-the-job training. And as I just mentioned, you'll have a mentor, an administrator, and a county-based person who, and that team is there to support you as you matriculate through the program. So TAPP is heavily supported. Now, some things that TAPP is not. Now, if you have had a teaching certificate outside of a waiver or provisional certificate, TAPP is not appropriate for you. You will not receive another degree, but you will, of course, receive that clear and renewable certification. It is not an easy route. I went through the TAPP program myself way back when, and it was rigorous. I came out the other side, not only a proficient new teacher, but a better person because I learned so much in the program. And again, just to reiterate, it's not going to replace a regular college teacher education program. But please keep in mind that TAPP is heavily supported. You will have people around you lifting you up and helping you as you move through the program. So let's look at some of the commitments with the TAPP program. All right, so there are some financial commitments to the TAPP program. So the first financial commitment that you will come across is are the GACE tests, and those GACE tests are for certification. You're required to take, pass, and pay for those GACE tests. So those tests you'll pay for, and you will pass the GACE tests before you come into the program. It is part of the application process. Once you're in the TAPP program, you will go through a 2-week training. Note that 2-week training is a non-paid training. And when I say part of the TAPP program, you're at the last step before coming into the TAPP program. You got to complete that pre-TAPP essentials training. So that's non-paid. Now, if you've done your research, and I know you have, if you've looked into other TAPP programs, if you've looked into any educator preparation programs in colleges or university, those traditional programs, you know how much those cost. They're very expensive. TAPP programs can be $3,000 to $4,000 per year. Now, our program is unique in the fact that we do not ask for any payment up front. What we want is to create and craft the best teachers possible, and then we want them to stay in Clayton County to teach our students. Now, we want you to stay at least 3 years after you complete the program. So TAPP is a 2-year program, and then after that, we want you to stay 3 more years. So that's a total of 5 years in the TAPP program and then out of the TAPP program. Now, we understand that, life happens, things happen, things are constantly changing. So let's say, you can't complete those 3 additional years after you have completed the TAPP program and gotten your renewable certification. We understand. What we will ask, though, is that you just pay back $1,000 for each year that you do not complete of those 3 years that we want you to stay. And still, that is a fantastic value for what you get from the Clayton County Public Schools TAPP program. No other TAPP program in the state of Georgia can do what we do with the financials. And if you look at a university or college, you already know that you cannot beat that price. So looking at some time commitments, I mentioned already that there is a pre-TAPP essentials program that comes before you are in the TAPP program. And remember, it will be a time commitment, and we already know that it is a financial commitment as well. Please note that you have to complete that TAPP essentials class training before you can come into the classroom. Now, if you're coming into our program during the summer, and also if you're doing it during our January intake, you still must go through new teacher induction. And that is a daily training that happens in the county, and that's going to be a time commitment as well. And then always remember, TAPP is a 2-year program, and it is structured for you to complete within those 2 years. Now, coursework. So we've already mentioned that we want you to come in with content knowledge. We're going to teach you how to be a teacher. We're going to teach you the art of pedagogy. So we will give you coursework. That coursework is completed in the summer and in the evenings, and we try to average it about 2 evenings per week. For all of the pathways, the TAPP pathways in Clayton County Public Schools, Clayton County provides the coursework for you. So again, you do not have to pay for the coursework. We teach the courses, and we give that knowledge to you so you can take it into the classroom and affect change with our students. Now, if you want to come into the TAPP program in a specific content field like math, science, English language arts, social studies, what have you, then you will have the coursework that you see on the screen. You see human growth and development, technology for educators, culture responsive practices. All of the classes that you see on the screen, you will complete over the 2 years that you are in the program. All right? Now, there are 2 additional pathways outside of those specific content areas that we also offer. And that's elementary education and special education. So if you want to come into our program in those 2 fields, we do not require you to have content knowledge. We teach you everything you need to know in order to be effective in those 2 content fields. Because of that, there are some additional classes that you will need to take on top of the general classes you see on the screen. So if we look at the elementary education pathway, these are the additional courses for people who want to teach in that K through 5 band, the kindergarten through 5th grade. So we're going to teach you the content process and strategies, effective content process and strategies to teach math, health and PE, social studies, and science. Remember that most elementary teachers teach all the content fields. Now, if you look at the bottom of the slide, you'll see 3 different courses, and you'll see the words reading endorsement next to them. Those 3 additional courses all focus on the teaching of reading to our students. We know that we must have our students be proficient readers before they leave the elementary school. But there's something unique here with the Clayton County Public Schools TAPP program. With those courses, you will receive a reading endorsement on your teaching certificate when you successfully complete the TAPP program. If you've looked into endorsements, which you can add to teaching certificates, you know that there's a cost to them. $1,000 to $2,000 usually, and could be even a little bit more, to take and receive an endorsement. If you come into the Clayton County Public Schools TAPP program in an elementary education pathway, you will receive that reading endorsement once you successfully complete those 3 courses along with the other ones. That is a great deal, great bargain. Now, I did mention the other pathway that doesn't require any previous college coursework and content knowledge. That'd be special education. That's working with our exceptional students. You see the 6 classes on the screen that you will need to take on top of the general classes in order to make you an effective special education teacher. Now, we mentioned that we try to make our schedule of classes so that our TAPP candidates are taking only about 2 classes in the evening a week. Now, sometimes classes do end and then start, so it could be 2 to 3 classes a week. But if you are coming into the TAPP program in a specific content field that I mentioned earlier, like math, science, what have you, then you can really kind of expect 2 classes a week. Now, we see on this sample schedule for a person coming into the program in the general pathway with a content-specific focus, we've got assessment for learning and identification and education of the exceptional child. Now, since the pandemic happened and we went entirely virtual, we've switched back to being in person, but most of our classes that we offer will be blended. So some will be in person and some will be virtual taught through Zoom. So we've got kind of blended coursework there. And you can see that certain classes have six course meetings, some have 5, some have 7. It just depends on the course and the content. Now, if you were coming into the TAPP program in an elementary education pathway, you're going to have those additional classes, so you will be taking more classes per week. And you can see we've added that reading and writing connection class to this sample schedule, so you can have an idea of what your schedule might look like if you come into the Clayton County Public Schools TAPP program. And here's a sample schedule for our special education pathway. Right? And again, Clayton County provides all of the coursework needed for all TAPP pathways. Now, still looking at those commitments, we looked at classes, some additional requirements. In order to complete the program, you have to complete all of the coursework satisfactorily. You have to pass the courses that we provide for you. You also must maintain employment in your school as a CCPS teacher. So that means you must, your administration must want to keep you at the school. And then very importantly, TAPP program is pretty rigorous. You've got a lot of commitments, so we want you to focus on those TAPP commitments. So we ask that you do not take on any extracurricular activities like coaching, clubs, what have you, because it's going to be in the way of you successfully completing the program. All right, so application process. Some of you have already started it, some of you have not, but we're going to talk about it today. So the pre-application process, you have just started it. This is a TAPP interest meeting and you are attending it. So you are getting all the information you need about the program, about how to apply. Once you are done with the TAPP interest meeting, we're going to want you to submit a TAPP interest form. Now that TAPP interest form is going to provide the intake team with information to help you in the application process. Once we get that form, what we're going to do is we're going to send you, and I'm going to put a link to that form in the chat box. Once we get that form, we're going to send you a GACE recommendation. So on the interest form, you're going to indicate where you went to school, your degree that you received, GPA, all of those things. You're going to submit unofficial transcripts, and then we're going to look at the TAPP pathway that you want to enter our program with, and then we're going to look at your transcripts, and we're going to see if you have enough credit hours to support coming into our program in that pathway that you chose. Once we go through that, then we're going to send you a GACE recommendation form, and that form is going to tell you the specific tests you need to take and pass to complete your application packet. Now, as we continue with the process for the 22-23 school year, again, you'll submit that interest form. You will also go on to the Clayton County Public Schools HR website and complete a TAPP application in the online application server. You're going to submit us a resume, and then you're going to give us all of those GACE score reports that show that you have passed those particular tests that we have recommended to you. You'll also need to take the GACE Educator Ethics exam, which is an online test that you can take at home, and you'll submit that completion certificate. And then we will need your official transcripts from all of the colleges and universities that you've attended. Now, we want you to send that complete application packet to Miss Teresa Brown. Again, she is the TAPP administrative assistant, and she will compile your documents together and let you know when you have a complete application packet. Please make sure that you're sending, if you're going to send that via email, that you send the entire application at once. Now, we understand that some schools do have electronic transcripts, e-scripts. You will want to send those to Miss Brown as well. And you can see her email address on the screen. It's teresa.brown2@clayton.k12.ga.us. And if you're going to send that e-script to her, make sure that you put it as attention Teresa Brown. All right, so if you want to come into the TAPP program in a specific content field, like I mentioned before, math, social studies, science, English language arts, you must have credit hours on your transcript to support you teaching that field. So let's say you want to teach high school math. Well, on your transcripts, you must have at least 21 semester hours in that particular content field in order for you to enter the program in that pathway. If you want to teach on the middle school level, then you need to have 15 semester hours to come into our TAPP program teaching a middle grades content field. Right? We prefer upper level coursework on your transcripts, so those 3,000, 4,000 level classes, things along those lines. And of course, those grades need to be, in the upper echelon of the grades. Now, this does not apply to special education or elementary education because remember, we will provide the coursework for those fields. All right, this is a screenshot of the TAPP interest form that I mentioned earlier. When you click that link that was in the chat, you will go to this interest form and fill this out for us. And once you filled it out and submitted it, then we can get that GACE recommendation form to you. We want you to please provide the GPA that you received at the time of your degree conferral. So degree conferral means when your degree was issued to you, that you completed that program, okay? And also there are some fields for you to choose areas that you are interested in. Please only choose 2 areas, all right? So you can choose up to 2 different areas. And also when you're choosing those areas, think about what your college transcripts, the content that you have on them. If you do not have enough college courses to support the area in which you want to teach, then you're not going to be able to teach that. So for example, if you want to teach English language arts and you have a degree in, let's say, journalism, hey, you're going to have enough credit hours to do English language arts. But let's say you have a degree in psychology. You're not going to have enough credit hours in English language arts to teach high school English language arts. All right, so please keep that in mind as you fill out the interest form. So once you have compiled everything for your application, please make note of our 2 deadlines for the 22-23 school year. Our intake deadline, if you are trying to come in January of 2023, is going to be December 9th, 2022. Please make sure you write that down. All right. So we need to have your complete application packet with GACE test pass, all those official transcripts that we asked for by December 9th, 2022. Now, if you want to come into our program for the 2023-2024 school year in August, then you're going to need to have everything complete by May 19th. Right? So please make sure you jot those down. And then those deadlines are subject to change just depending on need in the county. Just a quick look at the application timeline. As I said before, on the left, we see that we have to attend a TAPP interest meeting, which you're in. After that, you're going to submit that interest form, and then you're going to receive a GACE recommendation from the TAPP intake team. You're going to look at that recommendation and you're going to take the GACE tests that are on it, you're going to take and pass them, and then you're going to submit that full application packet by our December or May deadline. After that, we will call you in for a TAPP program interview. That's where you will interview with our team. If you are deemed a good fit for our program, then we will move you on to the next thing in our application timeline, where you will go out and you will get a job at one of our county schools. Once you've got that teaching position, then you will go through our pre-TAPP essentials. You'll do that new teacher orientation / induction. Once all that's done, then you will be the teacher of record in your classroom and you will start your teaching career in the TAPP program. Now, as I said before, send your completed electronic packets, application packets to Miss Teresa Brown. You see her email again on the screen. Try to include all required documents in that one email. Again, we know that we may get some e-scripts. That's fine. But everything else, we want you to try to put them in one email. It helps Miss Brown out as she is putting your packet together. You can also submit application packets through the mail. You've got our actual physical address on the screen. That's on 1087 Battle Creek Road. So please write that down, and I'll give you a second to do that. I'm also going to put the interest form link back in the chat. I also want to remind everybody, if you are direct messaging me, I will not be able to answer your question. So please ask that question and pose it to everyone, not just me. All right, so we've talked about GACE tests that you will have to take. Again, those financial commitments, the GACE test is one of those. So please see that you can take a combined test of $193. So some of the tests are broken up into two parts, specifically those tests for the high school content areas. They're going to be two different tests. You can usually take those tests together for $193, or if you're like me, I'm not the best test taker, you may decide to focus on one part of the test and then the other. So you're going to have to pay, you can pay for one test and then pay for the other part of the test. The Georgia Educator Ethics Assessment I mentioned is a test you can take at home. It's modules that will clue you in to the ethics of educators. And that's a $30 test, and you can take that at home at your leisure. Make sure that you check the GACE registration page for testing locations and dates of the schedules, dates of testing windows, excuse me. All right, this is a screenshot of the GACE page for the test takers. If you want to get some testing materials, test prep materials, you can go to the GACE website and you can purchase some sample tests to help you get familiar with the way the test is laid out. Please understand, you must take and pass all GACE tests in order to be considered for the program. We do not waive this. You must take and pass all tests before you are admitted into the TAPP program. No exceptions. All right. Testing window, GACE testing windows. So the GACE tests are given at specific times. It's imperative that you pay attention to the testing windows and also the score reporting dates. So if you're trying to aim for a specific deadline, you have to make sure that that score reporting date is well before that deadline. So you see, for example, if you wanted to take the test we've got, so the last one on this one is August 5th, which was a couple of days ago. So we see the window open August 5th and it closes August 13th to take the elementary education test. Those different parts of that test. That's a two-part test. You would need to take the test within that window or on August 15th, and then you would get your scores back on September 2nd. So please make sure that you pay attention to those testing windows. Here are some more testing windows for our special education pathway. Now, when you're thinking about the special education pathway, if you want to possibly enter the TAPP program in that, please understand that there are two different types of special education that we admit into our program. There's the special education general curriculum, and there's special education adaptive curriculum. Now, special education general curriculum is going to be our teachers that are co-teachers or collaborative teachers. They may do small group um, in a general classroom. Now, special education adaptive curriculum, that's going to allow you to teach our students who have some more severe learning disabilities that causes them to need to be in a enclosed environment with one teacher for a day. So those students that are in the adaptive curriculum, their cognitive level doesn't rise above an eighth grade level. So if you want to teach that special population of special education, then special education adaptive curriculum is going to be for you. Now, with either one of those two different curriculums, you're going to have to take content tests, special education content tests. And you see there are two tests that you would take: special education math and science, that's the 088, and the special education reading, English language arts, and social studies, the 087. So that's going to give you the content fields so you can teach all the different contents for special education. Now, as we wrap up, please understand everyone must take the GACE Educator Ethics Assessment. Everyone must take and pass their respective GACE content assessments, and you want to follow the TAPP application checklist. We're going to put that in the chat right now. Please make sure you follow the checklist for that complete application packet. Now, if you have any questions after you get off our Zoom today, please direct those questions to Ms. Teresa Brown. Again, you see her email address on the screen. You also have her district number, phone number. You can call her on that number Monday through Friday from 8:30 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. So please make sure you copy down that number. All right, that concludes our presentation for today. We thank you so much for coming out. We will take questions. You can come off mute for the next 5 minutes. So we will stop taking questions at 4:40. So if you have a question and it was not answered in the chat, please come off mute and you can ask that. I see Dana has their hand raised. If you would, please go ahead and ask your question.
I'm not sure if you answered this question primarily because I was going in and out of service.